Listen to the story of a campaign that was called a crusade, but in reality was a game of politics, power, and deceit. A powerful English bishop, Henry Hugh Despenser, led an army to liberate the Flemish cities from French control. But hostility, financial difficulties, and military chaos awaited them at every step. Was this campaign a success or a historic failure? Let's know Despenser's crusade, the truth of the matter, a story in which religion, politics, and power are all intertwined. The Crusades began in 1095, when Pope Urban II called on European Christians to invade the Muslim-ruled Holy Land, especially Erevishlam and surrounding areas, and called for a campaign to withdraw. Historians generally consider the Crusades to be from 1095 to 1291, when the Christian states in the Middle East finally collapsed. However, the Crusades continued in various forms from time to time until the 14th to 15th centuries. It is important to note that Christian countries, despite always being of the same religion, fought each other over political, regional, and religious differences. Wars within Christians were fought over religious differences, sectarianism, political and regional power, claims to the throne, and economic interests. As a result, the maps of Europe changed. Power shifted from religion to the state or monarchy, and over time, states and sects established a new political and geographical balance. We are going to present the history of these famous wars in upcoming videos. Stay with us for continuous updates. The Despenser Crusade. The Despenser Crusade, or Bishop of Norwich's Crusade, was a military campaign led by the English Bishop Henry Hugh Despenser in 1383 to aid the city of Ghent in its struggle against the supporters of the antipope Clement VII. This great event took place during the Papal Inquisition and the 100 Years' War between England and France, in which France supported Clement, whose court was based in Avignon, and the English supported Pope Urban VI in Rome. Contemporary critics of the Despenser Crusade included John Wycliffe and the historian Jean Froissart. Background: Flemish Rebellion. The county of Flanders, in which Ghent was located, was an ally of France. Part of its territory was in France and part in the Holy Roman Empire. In September 1379, the first rebellion broke out in Flanders. Then in January 1382, the citizens of Ghent rose up against their count, Louis II of Malle, who was pro-French. France had a strong influence in this Flemish region, and a major reason for the rebellion was that the Flemish people and merchants were worried about the loss of the Anglo-Flemish trade relationship. English wool was a major export for Flemish looms. Ghent received support from Brussels, Leuven, and other cities, and public protest gained strength. Now they appealed to the English for help. While Louis tried to block English imports, the Flemings, led by Philip van Artevelde, drove Louis out of Flanders at the Battle of Beauharnois-Velde and took possession of Bruges. Now, Louis was quick to retaliate with a French army by decisively defeating the Ghent militia at the Battle of Rosebecque on November 27th, where Philip was killed and the city was forced to accept Louis's terms, recognize Clement as the legitimate pope, and help in the war against the English. The Ghent fleet fled to England, where it continued to fight, while the rebel commander Franz Ackermann attempted to negotiate with the English to gain support for his cause. Charles VI of France entered Bruges and seized all the goods of the English merchants. Parliamentary debate. In October 1383, the English Parliament deliberated on the financial and military aspects of this campaign. Two conflicting proposals came under consideration. A proposal was made that the direction of this crusade should be towards Castile, that is, the crusade should be carried forward to establish John of Gaunt's claim to the Spanish throne on the throne of Castile. The House of Lords supported this proposal, and later the House of Lords also supported it. The second proposal was to direct the campaign towards the aid of the Flemish regions, that is, Ghent and its rebellion. This proposal was supported by the lower house, the House of Commons. The latter option, the Flanders route, was approved. Parliament provided funding, approved, and appointed Henry le Despenser, Bishop of Norwich, as leader of the crusade. The bishop refused to accept Arundel as his lieutenant and the secular leader of the campaign. Some peers criticized the crusade as a threat to Richard II's claim to France. The interests of the upper classes, lords, and the lower representatives, commons, differed in the choice of the campaign, reflecting class and political divisions within Parliament. Planning and organization. Pope and ecclesiastical roles. In early 1378, Cardinal Petro hoped that Richard II's marriage to, in Bohemia, could create an anti-French alliance between England and the Holy Roman Empire. However, the Bohemians declared war on France and refused to go in war. In 1379, Despenser published Urban Ivy's Bull Nuper Cum Venia, which promised a general pardon to the people in exchange for donating or participating in a general crusade against the Clementines. In this crusade, women even gave up their jewelry and household goods. In March 1381, by two bulls, Urban appointed Despenser in charge of the anti-Clementine crusade in England and gave him the authority to distribute the luxuries and the clergy to participate. On May 15th, another bull, the Dignum Sansum, also authorized Despenser to preach the crusade in the two archdioceses of England, Canterbury and York, and to take action against opponents of his message. All three bulls arrived in England in August 1381. On December 21st, 1382, at Old St. Paul's Cathedral in London, the Bishop of Norwich took the cross and formally pledged to go on crusade. On April 27, 1387, a military assembly was held at Sandwich Harbor, and on May 16, ships sailed for Calais. Pope Urban gave the campaign the status of a crusade against the infidels or heretics, so it was accompanied by a campaign of pardons and financial support. For example, the bulls established privileges for pilgrims. At the ecclesiastical level, the campaign was preached by religious groups, and donations were collected for the campaign. The aim of the ecclesiastical campaign was not only a military campaign, but also a religious and ideological one. Royal and parliamentary roles. The royal treasury took over the purchase of bows and arrows. Public finances were overseen by the treasurer of the Despenser, Robert Fulmer, and a London merchant, Sir John Philpott, who also acted as the expedition's banker. From his own private money, he financed some of the recruits and their transport across the Channel. Until the last moment, according to historian Thomas, attempts were made to prevent the departure of the crusade. King Richard II, who was advocating peace with France, ordered Despenser to await the arrival of an experienced general, William de Beauchamp, but the bishop ignored him. Campaign. The crusade assembled at Sandwich on April 27th and set sail for Calais on May 16th, 1383. The first crusaders to arrive in Calais stayed only a few days before the full force crossed the Channel. The bishop led them in a successful attack on Gravelines. Siege of Ypres. The Crusaders joined the militia of Ghent in June. There was some debate about whether to attack Bruges or Ypres in Flanders, or to invade France, as one historian puts it. The army decided to lay siege to Ypres, which was actually a civilian city. The English army laid a long siege to the city. The siege lasted for several weeks, during which there was fierce fighting on both sides. The harsh weather, lack of supplies, and disease took a heavy toll on the English army. The arrival of French reinforcements made matters worse. Eventually, the English army had to retreat, and the siege failed. Retreat and end. After the defeat at Epsom, the army fell into disarray. Disagreements among military commanders, lack of funds, and pressure from Parliament dampened the spirit of the campaign. Eventually, the army returned to England. After returning to England, Despenser was accused of failure. He was severely criticized in Parliament. The campaign was considered one of England's most shameful military failures. Ceasefire. After burning Gravelines, Despenser made a treaty with the French and sent his army back by September. In fact, there is no clear truce or formal agreement regarding the dispensational crusade found in any record that has been fully recognized by history. Aftermath. Upon his return, Despenser and his captains were summoned by the Chancellor, Michael de la Pole, at the insistence of Parliament, which opened on October 26th. Impeachment of the Despenser. The failure of Despenser's crusade provoked a strong reaction in England. Before the campaign began, the people and some members of Parliament had accepted it as a religiously sacred and nationally necessary war. But the defeat at the siege of Ypres and the army's ignominious retreat changed the situation. Soon after the retreat, the English Parliament began an official impeachment of Despenser in October 1383. The main reasons for this impeachment were: the failure of the incredible military campaign severely damaged England's political reputation and military confidence. The funds collected from the public and the church for the campaign was not used properly. Serious mismanagement in war strategy, weak leadership, and loss of soldier lives. They continued to use the religious campaign for personal and political gain. Parliamentary proceedings. Parliament issued a strong criticism against the Despenser. He was proposed to be dismissed from office and fined. The court ruled that he should not lead any future military campaigns. The impact of the campaign created severe tensions in the relationship between the royal court and the church. Conclusion. Despenser lost public support and political standing. The campaign against it is considered one of the most significant examples of the growth of parliamentary power in English history. Historical significance. The impeachment of Despenser is considered to be the beginning of the growing power of the English Parliament. It laid the foundation for a new political balance between the powers of the monarchy and the church. The failure of this religious war convinced the public that wrong leadership could destroy the nation. Captain's punishment. After the campaign was over, Parliament questioned not only the Despenser, but also the captains under his command. These captains were bribed. They were accused of taking bribes. They were accused of receiving bribes of about 18,000 gold francs during the campaign. They were accused of justifying this amount by saying that they had to give up valuable horses, so they should have paid compensation. The punishments were: 5 captains were imprisoned, along with the treasury, and a fine of about 14,600 gold francs was imposed.